Hello, I'm Hallermouse, and I'm making a video about comics. What's up? I've gotten this room, this comic book room, better organized, and have some boxes out where I've taken stuff in long boxes, put them in short boxes, and able to put them up. And while I've been doing this process, I turned around and I have some key comic books here, some great key comic books here. And then I was like, you know what? You've got some great stuff to do a video with. Okay, a video. So basically, what I want to show you are my top 10 flea market comic book finds. Now, I'm not going to say this is of all time. I'm not going to say that I won't wake up tomorrow and be like, I got 10 more books I could have said that were better than this, right? I've been doing this a long time. And there's a difference between going to a comic book shop, going to a convention, and going to a flea market out in the wild, okay? Just like the difference of going to a grocery store is and then going out in the woods and trying to find your own food. That's exactly the difference, in my opinion, right? The part of the fun of it. And finding things in the wild are so much better because a lot of the times the people aren't aware of what they have or they just don't care. They just want to get rid of it. Versus where you can go to a comic book convention and they might jack up a price or you might get a better deal because they don't want to carry it out. But I've been doing flea markets since I was a kid in the late 70s, and then I started buying comic books everywhere and anywhere. And these are the things I have found. In my mind, there's flea markets everywhere. These aren't yard sales. I stuck it to flea markets, and it was really cool because you can go back and look at 10 years worth of my videos where you see me coming in with these great big huge hauls and from flea markets. And I tell you that I've done the math. I bought a lot of comics, a comic book a lot, and I made the deal with this guy and they came to 17 cents a piece. So a lot of the stuff is right. That's kind of what we have here, but this is like the cream of the crop. And if you've been watching me for a while, you're going to recognize some of these books, especially from the last few months. That's one of the reasons they need to be organized. All right. How did I get such great deals on these before I get into this and stuff, right? Well, the last year or two has been really fantastic. That's why I kind of like laid off. I said my piece about a few things and stuff, right? But people are watching spec channels, and the channels are actually FOMO channels, the fear of missing out, because the market really doesn't move that much week to week on books going up and down in value. They're reactionary to comics and to move comics being comic movies, comic TV shows, things like that. It's really not rocket science to kind of predict what's going on. And while everybody keeps their eyes on those things and those books, seasoned collectors and people who can avoid that will be able to go through boxes and be able to identify things, right? That people aren't looking for, and eventually they will get hot, right? So, with no further ado, you showed up for a top 10 list, so let's get started here, right? I have some honorary mentions I didn't put in here. We're going to stop to 10. Now, the thing is that a lot of these books I'm going to show I have bought multiple times over the years and sold them, flipped them, trade them, whatever. So and then I find them again, right? So one of the books that I grabbed and I'm pretty sure I never flipped was when I ran across She-Hulk, and this was $1. Yeah, the first appearance of She-Hulk by the great Stan Lee in that John Buscema cover and stuff, right? And of course, this book has taken off several times over the years. She-Hulk has had a cult following, and thank goodness I don't think when it comes to the comics that the Disney show killed that cult following. I'm sure some other people kind of jumped off, or they're putting their She-Hulk stuff back in the closet, if you will, right? Now, this next one that I want to show you, number 9 here, if I'm keeping count right, are several comics, okay? So I want to count this as one lot, right? Because basically, as an Alan Moore fan, I pick these up in multiples all the time. Got everything, either had a few left over from being on the rack in the 80s and then finding them here and there and picking them up. But the greatest thing that ever happened was a guy who owns a store. I was at the flea market, at a Hillsville flea market for some of these. I'll buy doubles of these all the time. And the guy was just walking around, didn't want to dig through the boxes, so he just looked at the a guy who owned this section of the flea market. This was his section, who owned these books. He just kind of asked him, do you have some high end stuff? And then he wanted to move on. While he was saying this guy had played around He'd been doing this for so long, moving comics at flea markets and all over the place, that he plays around and he would make little short boxes where he would throw a few gems in there just to entertain himself to see who would get it. So a bunch of the stuff ended up being 30 cents a piece, because I ended up finding some gems while this guy didn't want it to dig through. So basically, I want to show you my doubles also because they all probably came from flea markets. But the first, number 20, the first real Alan Moore Swamp Thing. We all know how that changed the world. And of course, I have multiples that came through there. Number 21, the anatomy lesson, the one where, the famous issue, the one that when I read, I hear Vincent Price's voice. But we'll go through here. But this was the one, right? This is Swamp Thing number 25. And I think I have a screenshot somewhere of one of the creators on this book. It's probably Totenbaum, I'm thinking, or Steve Bissett, maybe even Rick Veitch and stuff. But this is the one where people mistakenly think this is the cameo appearance of John Constantine, when really a bunch of the guys working on the book were just fans of Sting, so they would stick Sting in there. In the back, smile, his little head shot there, just crying. And John Constantine's look is based on Sting, right, from the Police for you guys, right? But while I was doing that, this book was a bit of a key, a little bit, and I ended up getting a couple copies. I had one there, but I think I got 2 or 3 copies for 30 cents a piece. Oh, and the real first appearance of John Constantine, I got this at out of a dollar box. I don't know, years and years ago at a flea market for $1, right? So there you go, right? Now this one I have found many times. I have found a complete set of Deadpool many times at flea markets and auction sites. I've actually had a complete run of that ongoing series from the late 90s with Ed McGuinness art, and who's it, Fabian Nacenza was probably working on it and stuff, right? I think the last time I had that one was like 2010 or 11, and I ended up flipping the whole thing on eBay years ago. But before that, while that was going on, a little book became hot in Wolverine because it was the first time Wolverine and Deadpool fought, in the comics here. So it was a bit of a big key issue and a kind of a big deal. And I bought this thing 2 or 3 times over the years, and I would get bored with it because I'm just not a Deadpool fan. Despite seeing the omnibus you have here, I've never even cracked that thing open, right? I like Deadpool in the movies, but I just really can't handle him for many reasons in the books. So I would get this, wasn't attached to it, and sell it. And then I ran across a few people who were getting a little bit greedy. One guy just wanted to get what he thought it was for, but they were checking eBay prices. And the universe takes care of you because I turned around and found this in a dollar box about a week later from the last time I dealt with somebody that was trying to sell this, right? So Wolverine 88, I love this cover. That's the only reason I really put it in here, because that is just a fantastic use of black and reds. Very punk, very cool. Another book that I've had 2 or 3 times over the years, and I know I had it actually in the 90s, before, pre-internet and everything like that, but I've seen this book go up and down, and if you got it, just hold on to it. It's the way I feel about it, right? But I've been talking forever. But yeah, Omega Man number 3, first appearance of Lobo. No great story. I would just go through and find these in back issues. Nobody wanted the Omega Man, so, and I have assorted issues where there's an Alan Moore backup story and a few of them in the later in the series, and then I've backed up and I've gotten every Lobo appearance except for one. So there you go, right? Now this was $2. There is actually a video, and if I can remember, I think I actually call it my greatest flea market haul ever, from about 7 or 8 years ago. And I found Hulk 340 that has the Wolverine, Wolverine on the cover with his claws popped out, and you can see the Hulk in the reflections. That was also the year that I found, within a month of each other, I found 2 copies of the first appearance of Gambit from X-Men that was in there, and quite a few other key X-Men books were in there, and I paid $2 a pop for them. Well, I sold some of them because actually I remember when I watched the video, I was whining that I was a little short on money that month, little TMI, back then, and I just shook my head when I rewatched the video a couple years ago. Couple of weeks ago probably. But anyway, we have the first appearance of Rogue in Avengers Annual number 10. I have bought this thing for $1 and $2 in back issue bins, flea markets, everywhere. You just kind of run across it. This was probably my second or third one, and I decided to hold on to this one. Right? I don't really get too attached to some of these books unless it's like some series that really grabs me. I'm more the story will grip me a little bit more than just a key first appearance. But I'm no idiot, right? This was from a couple months ago, right, at a flea market, and I've actually there was a lot more Todd McFarlane stuff. I ended up getting quite a few amazing Spider-Man Todd McFarlane out of everything there, but like I said, this has, the shape of this one's a little bit iffy, but this was redeeming because this book was stolen from me, right, and I bought it off the rack, but it's that classic Todd McFarlane uh, cover that everybody's gone nuts over. Batman 423. I found that for $1. And actually, the day that I found this, the guy who was filling up his boxes in his indoor flea market section had asked me if there was anything in his stuff that was any good. I'm like, yeah, you got some pretty good stuff. As I was pulling this out in some early Todd McFarlane Amazing Spider-Man for $1. I also ended up, this was the same guy that I ended up getting a lot of Watchmen issues and early Sandman issues for $1 a piece a few months. I made a video on that too, sitting in a car freaking out. And if you saw me couple months ago, this was an amazing deal. Basically, I think I have to go back and watch it. I think maybe I paid $10 or $12 for one of the books, and then I looked up and I saw that he had a even bigger key book, if you will. And I kind of asked him what he would want in trade, and I ended up giving him 22 issues of Swamp Thing, and I think they were like early Swamp Thing, when before Alan Moore was on. Then I gave him what I had afterwards, where it was Mark Miller, Nancy Collins, and Grant Morrison, Mark Miller, and Nancy Collins. Later on, if you know the series, stuff that I just figured to give away. And I found out there was one book that's controversial in there that was in there. So he got one key book. So I ended up trading 22 books, I believe, of Swamp Thing for this. And I think $10 or $12 or something, right? But anyway, Moon Knight, Marvel Spotlight on Moon Knight. Beautiful condition. I mean, this thing is mint. Newsstand and in Mylar, which I thought was fantastic. But this and all of these Moon Knight books is what I ended up trading 22 issues of Swamp Thing for. Uh, like I said, for this, but for $10 or $12 or something like that, I got Moon Knight #1. Now, I bought this when I saw the deal at this indoor flea market because, I could have kicked myself. I think for over 30 years, I have seen this thing in dollar boxes, this entire series of Moon Knight in dollar boxes for years. And to be honest, when I went to Heroes Con and I went to another flea market just yesterday or the other week or something like that, I'm starting to see this series back in dollar boxes, right? I don't know if the bloom has I don't know if the dew has, what is it? The bloom is off the rose. Because sitting here, sorry, I was sitting here not wanting to go on a Disney rant. It seems like everybody's down on Disney right now, which, they're earning, right? Now, this one was a great stop, a great haul. I ended up finding issues of the first Punisher miniseries, some beat up issues of Kraven's Last Hunt, which I've shown before and everything like that. But I got this and I felt funny for buying it because it is in low grade. But I bought this off the stand when it was coming out. And like I said, I found it probably 3 or 4 issues over the years, and just a few years ago, 2 issues within a month of each other. I get it, I get rid of it because I'm one of the people that thinks one of the people that I'll just say it, the X-Men annual that came out before this, I think that's the true first appearance of Gambit, no matter how you want to spin it. But anyway, X-Men 266, ended up getting this for quite a cool deal. I mean, basically after doing the math, I think it came to like $1 or something. May have to go back to watch the video to do it, but it doesn't matter if I'm wrong this time because I have bought this probably going to go, like I said, I'm going to say conservatively, 3 times I got this, it was probably $1 to $2 each time, right? So there's hope out there. Now this one I actually ended up having guilt after doing this for over 40 years at flea markets or more and stuff like that, and walking around and knowing, kind of sniffing out the books and everything like that. I ended up getting this for $2, and this thing actually peaked to $700 at one point. The shape this one is, wouldn't have been like a near mint value, right? But I got this for $2. Then about 2, 3 weeks ago, I actually shot a video where I was like, "Am I a crook? Should I have told them?" I had some kind of guilt over this one, right? But I'm a huge Black Adam fan. The movie, I went and saw the movie knowing it was going to be exactly what I thought it was going to be, almost. But yeah, I ended up finding this for the first appearance in the Bronze Age of Black Adam, his second appearance, not the Golden Age now, but Shazam number 28. And I thought this was just a fantastic find, and I was like, yep, glad I went, right? Now, this next book is more of a personal choice. This one for me is like this is one of the ones I'm most proud to have found because I just never pictured being able to get it when I was a kid. And that's the trick here, kid. One of my greatest memories as a kid in the late 70s with our Saturday mornings when that's the only time you could really watch cartoons in peace. That was your morning, your time. I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I would belly crawl down the hallway of that trailer to get into the living room because this was my time. Turn on the TV, try to give it enough time to warm up because those tubes, I'm telling you, back in the day, you had to let them warm up. At least we did, you know. But and it was two syndicated shows before the network shows came on, right? And it was Battle of the Planets, G-Force for you guys, Super Gatchaman, Ninja, and Super Ninja Gatchaman, whatever. And then Johnny Quest. And Johnny Quest just blew me away. So I have been a fan since I was 4 years old, right? So in the 60s, Gold Key came out with one comic. I think it was in 1964. One comic that adapted one episode of Johnny Quest. And I found this at a flea market and got a great, great deal. This was one of the few times that I was willing to spend a little bit of money. And for a whole $27, uh, the same guy had the book at the flea market that I had seen the year before and passed it up then, and he gave me a better deal a year later because he watches the channel. That's what blew my mind. He knew who I was, and in that year gap, watched the channel. So he gave me a fantastic deal. $27 for this is perfect. I mean, it's worth a couple $100 now, even in the shape that it's in here, even with its flaws. But that's fantastic, right? But anytime I do a top 10 list of even greatest purchases or anything like that, this was a holy grail book, all right? So this was great. Fantastic. And that's it, man. So, guys, just remember if you get out there and do a little digging, do a little work, go out in the wild, just play around and to have fun with it so that you don't get tunnel vision trying to find those FOMO books, those spec books that change every week and whatnot, whatever. Just have a little fun with it and don't get the tunnel vision looking for that stuff, man. Just have some fun, go out in the wild, look in places you normally wouldn't, and have fun with it. So, everybody be excellent to each other. Later.